So I found it. I was like, this is so fun. Because it gives everything a chance to happen. It auto mutes. Like I'm not involved, so like nobody can hear me. And I'm just kind of like, all right, we're doing this. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Today is Thursday, March 24th, 2022. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup. Green tea out of the Keurig right over there. It's not bad. It's all right. I don't have a whole pot of it to drink, but, can always make more. What's happening? How was your Wednesday? Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Dennis. Look, it's Dennis.
First bottle.
Good morning, Stacy, Jenny, and all the rest of you, whether you're watching live later or listening. Thanks for joining me. I'm in New York. Can we call this New York City? I would call it New York City, but I can't. Because we're in White Plains.
White Plains. We are 15 miles from New York City.
Okay. What do I know? You're getting a bunch of good mornings.
I have it open.
So for those of you who may not, Jenny's on her second bottle. Should we clarify whether or not that's water? Maybe it's been a late night. For those of you who may not know, maybe stepped in on this in New York City today to meet a past guest of Martial Arts Radio at his invitation, someone who had a pretty substantial impact on my life. And said, you know what, I can't pass that opportunity up. So coming in to hang out for the day. And Stacy agrees. No, you are not in New York City if you're in White Plains. Okay, well, I there are regions where some people would define where the edge as being pretty broad. Boston, for example, Chicago seems to be that way. Los Angeles is that way. Atlanta is that way. That you can get like the eastern third of Massachusetts to some people, not me, but to some people is Boston. Good morning, Nathan. So we're going to get on some trains and some subways, and I don't know, who knows where we're going. And we're going to get down to Manhattan. And it looks like it's raining now, but the forecast keeps pulling back on how much rain we're going to have and when we're going to have rain. So fingers crossed, everybody. Stacy says, you're almost in upstate to a true New York City native. That's funny.
She's correct.
Ray says Las Vegas is like that. Okay, I've been to Vegas. And is it because Vegas is like that, or because there's nothing else there? If you're when I went hiking an hour east of Vegas, there was nothing but sand and dirt, rocks, mountain goats. Jenny says, I'm in a Philly suburb, but it's easier to tell people that I live in Philly when they don't know the area that well. That makes sense. Well, how was your Wednesday? Mine was pretty good. Simple, easy, straightforward. Did the show, did a little bit of work, shaved, packed, boiled some sap. I'm telling you, this is going to be the year for maple syrup. I don't know if it's just that I got lucky where I put my taps, or if everybody's having a good season. I don't know. Did any of you tap trees? I don't remember. Good morning, Brian. Brian and I had a good chat yesterday. So, yeah. Did I do anything else? No, not really. Just kind of made sure that everything was ready to go, and I got my stuff. I got my hat. I'm wearing my alpaca socks. My cozy alpaca socks. Here, you're all soft with that. Is that gross? You got?
No.
Yeah,
soft.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the most I've ever spent on a pair of socks. They're like $20, but they're amazing. Yeah, and Ray's putting it in terms that make sense to me. Like Chittenden County is Burlington for those outside of that area. Yeah, I get that. Stacy says she was in New York, just south of Poughkeepsie, until she was 11. They always referred to our family as being upstate.
Oh, yeah. Poughkeepsie is upstate.
Brian says, it sounds like I'm right that it is a good sap season. Our neighbors Tap and Boyle, they've been getting a good amount. Well, good. We've had a few years where, things didn't go well. So maybe we can at least have a whole bunch of maple syrup out of it. Because we've got potentially another week. So fingers crossed. See what happens. You all know what I'm doing today. There's no work that's happening today. I may end up at a coffee shop and do some email or something. We'll see what happens. Especially if it is rainy, probably not going to walk around too much. But I want to know, what are you guys doing today? Is there anything going on that you're excited about? Anything fun? Anything big? You know what is going on? Martial Arts Radio, new episode 695, titled "The Influence of Martial Arts and Wrestling." That's not the right tab. We brought Craig Wareham back on, who is the biggest wrestling fan I know, to talk about how martial arts has influenced pro wrestling and how pro wrestling has influenced martial arts. And we had a great conversation, and I haven't had a chance to watch it through because something cool. I didn't have to do all this work. Yay, thanks, Craig. Craig gave us a bunch of video clips to insert into the episode, kind of like we do when we do How to Fight episodes. So he's like, oh, we're talking about this subject. Let's put a clip in of this thing. And so that if you want to watch the YouTube version, that's available, of course, on YouTube. Stacey says, now I want maple bacon. You can always make maple bacon. Just, take some bacon, put it in a container, put some maple syrup in there, put a little bit of water in just to thin it out, shake it up, leave it in the fridge for 24 hours and cook it. Boom, maple bacon. Jenny says, my son is taking his road test for his driver's license tomorrow. I'll be spending the next day and a half biting nails. Well, good luck to him. And it feels weird to read your comment when you're right there.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Dennis says, totally. I've been hanging out with Jeremy for the past 13 hours. Can you... They've never heard you woo. I would love for them to hear you woo. Woo! Apologies to anyone who is in the adjoining hotel rooms. Jenny just asked, like, the delay.
Oh.
Dennis, can we get a live woo?
There you go.
That might be my favorite thing about today. It may end up being. Who knows? Just that you all got to hear that. I've heard that so many times that it makes me happy every time. We did get a bunch of questions or answers to my comments. All right, so I posted on Facebook, what martial arts movements did you initially think were useless when you learned them, but later found utility? And let's see, I'm going to yawn. Let's see, in order that they were posted. Nope, come on. Nope, that says most relevant. We want all. Come on, Facebook, don't be dumb. Stacy, I think, was first, where she said, damn W blocks. For those of you who have not trained ITF Taekwondo, I don't think any other system has this. W block is here, and it is presented, even at a high level, as you're blocking two kicks from two different people, which, you know what? If that's how you look at it, yeah, it's really dumb. That's not what it is. But not everyone's willing to admit that. Let's see. Kelly says upward block, which that's what I would call a rising block, high block, right? There's not right? Like that's what you're. Different flavors of Taekwondo use slightly different terms for things. So if I'm not getting that right, Kelly, please correct me. Stacy may also know that because Stacy seems to know different versions of language in different Taekwondo systems. Mark says bowing at the beginning and end of forms. It is kind of interesting that we start a combative set with a greeting. And let's see, Dennis said knife hand blocks, coming with the outside edge. Why would you do that when you can punch? Oh, because there are times where you want to put things in place. And when I think about knife hand blocks, I think about something like Tony Lauer's system, where you're out here and yeah, you can strike. Maybe it's not tons of power, but you can get in there. And now you've got some grapply things. Is that kind of where your brain ended up?
Yeah. So
as you trained?
It was. So it was back.
We've got you here live. We might as well do this. Might as well take advantage of it.
So when I trained with Mike Pasquale, Michael is trained in everything, Shotokan, all those good things. So the subject came up of the knife hand blocks, and I said, I got to admit, Soki, those are useless. And he said, everything is not the way it appears. And you have a hand here and this hand here. It's great for pictures. Mm-hmm. It's a Kodak moment. But his take on it was that this hand was, you were grabbing an arm,
yeah,
and then this hand coming across. And it was actually more of a throw, but it was adapted to a block, perhaps to hide what the actual technique was. And then he proceeded to throw me over and over, and I get a better appreciation for.
To me, it's the first two pieces of brush, grab, strike from like Filipino martial arts. Because you were generally taught with a knife hand, a shuto, right? That you have to bring this hand up. Well, this hand's out, so if that's redirecting, bam, this is grab, and now you can follow up. You can do something with that one. So,
good stuff.
Wow, you just did it how I envisioned knife hand. Nice. Okay. Stacy's calling it an upward palm block. Okay, like in Jun Gun. Okay. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To me, that's the same concept. It's can also, blocks can be strikes, strikes can be blocks. Okay, we're on. I like the way she phrased this. Jenny says, going back to W blocks, that's a full duty explanation for W blocks. It is the explanation that it is in General Choi's Encyclopedia. The guy who more or less invented it. Yeah, so it's all good. And then we'll save this one. Dennis poses a good question. I'll read this to you, and you can think about it. And then on the other side of what Frank gave us, we'll come back to this. Former UFC... Actually, Dennis, do you want to read your comment?
I don't know my comment.
It's right here. You can read it right here.
Okay. Former UFC champion Ronda Rousey says, to be the best, you have to constantly be challenging yourself, raising the bar, pushing the limits of what you can do. So I pose actually two questions to Jeremy and to the group, of course. What are some of the ways you challenge yourself to be a better version of who you were yesterday? And really, for Jeremy, where you can share, what are some of the ways you push Whistlekick to be a better version of what it is today?
So we'll come back to that after we go through stuff Frank posted. I like having a co-host on the show. This is kind of fun. All right. So where am I? I'm right here. I'm on the fast computer. So this is probably coming through much better for you guys. March is Red Cross Month. Number one, Florence Nightingale was an amazing figure. She created the American Red Cross. She saw the suffering from bad health conditions on the battlefield and in the military hospitals, and she fought like crazy to change the conditions, to make sure that the doctors washed their hands and practiced sanitary measures. She put herself at great risk. Sharon Lawrence. It is amazing to me that it was not that long ago that things like washing hands when performing surgery was not commonplace. Our understanding of bacteria and viruses and how that impacted health, and specifically medical intervention like that, wasn't commonplace. How many people, just from washing hands over the course of world history might not have died if people washed their hands. It's an incredible number. Blows my mind. Brian says, loving this dual host treat. Yeah, hey, if I didn't live in the woods alone, maybe we would have. What it reinforces for me is, if I do end up, with someone at some point, she's probably going to have to help host the show. Yeah. The Red Cross, in its nature, it aims and purposes, and consequently, its methods, is unlike any other organization in the country. It is an organization of physical action, of instantaneous action at the spur of the moment. It cannot await the ordinary deliberation of organized bodies if it would be of use to suffering humanity. It has, by its nature, a field of its own. Clara Barton. Now, of course, the Red Cross has come under some fire at times, but I think the one thing that we can all recognize is that there have been so many instances when things needed to happen, and the Red Cross was the first organization on the ground, ahead of local government, ahead of national government. And regardless of outcome, regardless of impact, regardless of how you see things, like there's controversy around how money works within that organization. Forget that for a moment. If you've ever been part of a group, even a small group, you know how hard it is to coordinate the logistics of a small group. Coordinating the logistics of a large group, as well as supplies to some random place that you are not ahead of all other groups. That's kind of an interesting thing. It's kind of cool that happens. So, yeah, props to them. Jenny says, there were periods in our medical history where we thought an infection was a sign that the body was healing. So we used to actually do things that encouraged infections. You'll be fine. Just rub some dirt in it. Maybe that's where that comes from. We got one more here. I'm happy to volunteer for the American Red Cross Celebrity Cabinet. The Red Cross is an organization that responds to those in need, and it is an honor to help them with the life-saving role they play every day in communities nationwide. Peyton Manning. I don't have much to add on to that. I like when celebrities do good stuff. I think people should use their resources wisely to help others when possible. So there you go. Stacy says, if you've ever had a friend need 128 units of blood over 48 hours, you appreciate the Red Cross. I'm on a break from giving blood because the last 4 times I gave blood, they screwed it up. And there was no contribution. I had holes in my arm. I was down a half a pint, but not enough that they could use, which was a bummer. Historically, people have had a hard time drawing my blood, with the exception of the phlebotomists at my my naturopath. But then again, they don't need nearly as much, so I don't know. All right. So actually, let me share that. I think you guys should see this. Here it is. Oh, wait, reminders. All right. So what are some of the ways you challenge yourself to be a better version of who you were yesterday? And I'll respond to Dennis's question to me, where I can share what are some of the ways that I'm pushing Whistlekick to be a better version of what it is today. Constantly throwing things against the wall, constantly recruiting new people to work on projects. Had a conversation with someone yesterday. Hey, here's a thing that I think you would be good at that I would like to work on with you. What do you think? Right? And I used to be really specific. Oh, we're going to grow in this way. We're going to do this thing. And it's never worked out quite that way. And it's interesting that one of the epiphanies that I had in my last business, in my IT company, is an epiphany I'm really just coming to now, and admittedly, roughly the same amount of time in on Whistlekick. Just provide options and let the market, let the people decide what is in demand. You know, it used to be, okay, sparring gear, we're going to be all product based. Any of you who have been around for a little while know that that is not the direction that we are primarily headed. Do I want to continue to do that? Yeah. Is there sparring gear that's going to show up in a month or so? Yeah. But it's the first sparring gear order I've placed since the end of 2019. We barely have any. Actually, that's not true. There was a little bit that came through a year ago, 6 months ago. It wasn't that much. And, you know, it's sold. Most of it sold. I shipped out a box yesterday. But instead of trying to say, no, this is what everyone wants, just put a bunch of things out there. What do people want? And the things that are taken up well, like free training day, that's what we put the resources into. So that's what I'm doing to push Whistlekick to be better, is to take the things that people respond to and do more of it. You know, people respond to the show. So we find ways to improve the show. People don't respond as much to our social media. So we are not investing disproportionate resources into the social media. And Stacy acknowledges, yeah, the pandemic killed sparring for a while. Brian says the same thing. Pandemic had to have slowed the physical sales though. I put in a fairly large order that arrived end of January 2020. I was just about to get it to Amazon. And then Amazon said, hey, guess what? You don't sell hand sanitizer, so we're not going to ship out any of your stuff. And then a couple months later, Amazon said, hey, your sales metrics this quarter were terrible. So we're going to charge you more, and we're going to reduce your storage allotment, and we're going to do a bunch of other things. And I wrote back, I was like, yeah, but you told me that that had to happen because I don't sell hand sanitizer. And they're like, we don't care. So that's why you're not going to find our gear on Amazon anymore, because I'm done. And Dennis says, Stacy, true that. When we started our Superfoot testing in January, it was the first time I had sparred in almost 2 years. Same. Yeah, I hadn't sparred anybody other than I think maybe once with Paul, and maybe like once kicking around with Terry, like just so little. It really was, you know. And Stacy says, you know, damn Amazon, and I get it, right? Because they're so big that they have to have these rules, and rules don't leave space for like first tier support people to use judgment. And if it was just that, it would be fine, but it's plenty of other things. The number of people who have purchased gear and returned it as damaged and sent me their old gear is just like, I can't do it. The margins aren't good enough. It's not worth the time, energy, investment for that to come back out. So we're just selling everything direct now. Jenny says, I spend most of my day trying to remember that my daughter is watching everything I do, and I need to make sure that she has a good role model to copy. We are starting with eating habits and getting exercise and fresh air regularly. She and I are also learning how to handle negative feelings and emotions. That's awesome. Oh, and Jenny says, as for pushing Whistlekick, I'm involved in a few projects. Yes, you are. Very much appreciative. And I talk up Whistlekick whenever I can. Yeah. No, computer, I don't want to check my PC setup for daylight savings time or run your suite of optimization tools. Go away. There will be a show tomorrow, most likely from Dennis's spare bedroom / man cave / office. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, I would say, given Sarah will be sleeping in the next room, I'm thinking we'll go downstairs to the kitchen.
Okay. So
Dining
from
area.
Dennis's kitchen.
Yeah, more likely.
Okay. Where there will be
Especially
plenty
if I, woo!
That's for all the people that were loud last night keeping us awake. They can all deal. Well, I think this takes us to the end. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with our special guest, Dennis, whom there are people on here who have never seen you beyond pictures. So that's kind of fun. You and Paul, was it just once we did that in Tampa?
Just once.
Just once, yeah. This is not his first time helping to host First Cup, though. Oh, Liz is here. All right. Stacy says we need another woo tomorrow too. And Liz says, woo, Dennis's kitchen. Kellie Thomas, I did. Woo. Brian says, woo. Everybody loves it. Thank you, Stacy. I plan to. Absolutely. Yeah. So there we go. I hope you have a great day. I hope you check out that episode that we posted. Just a heads up that the video sync is a little bit off in some of the spots. It's not enough that we're not going to post it, but just between Andrew's internet and Craig's internet, it was a little bit off. I believe mine is also off at spots. Just Zoom didn't do a great job. It's okay. But it should be more than good enough for you to enjoy it. There is the audio version if you prefer to do it that way. If you want to support us in all the work that we do, remember we've got the Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick. You've got the code First Cup 15 to save 50% on anything at whistlekick.com. And of course, if you want the whole list, it's whistlekick.com/family. Dennis keeps it up on his computer. It's like I walked in the room, it was there. If you've got questions or comments, leave them at the Facebook page, facebook.com/firstcupwithjeremy. I'll go post something now for tomorrow, and hopefully you will join us again. Today we're on Twitch as well as YouTube and Facebook. Tomorrow, no Twitch, but we will be on Twitter. 6:30 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 5 days a week. Thanks for coming by, everybody. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Be well. Peace.